I will allow to introduce themselves now. And I am Dmitry Alamov. I run a VC fund called Frontier Ventures, based in Singapore, focusing on Southeast Asia. Specifically, service marketplaces is one of our priorities. And now I will turn it over to Aviva. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you. Hi everyone, I'm Aviva. I'm the head of the international strategy for Numa, which is based in Paris and is a co-working space, an accelerator, and also we're working a lot with the corporates on open innovation programs, entrepreneurship, and so on. So basically, we have the biggest community now in France in terms of the startup scene, and we are very strong in Europe and expanding today abroad and looking for smart partnership in Southeast Asia.
Hi, my name is Ragnar Sais. I'm co-founder of Pipedrive. Pipedrive is really simple CRM. It's basically helping you to manage your sales. And we have clients in 130 different countries. We have also clients in Singapore. And I was just looking that in Europe, there is only 2 countries where we don't have clients. These are Montenegro and Albania. But we have huge customer base in Europe as well. And just 4 days ago, TechCrunch was chosen as a best B2B startup in Europe. So it was great achievement.
Hi, my name is Igor. I'm representing Skolkovo Foundation from Russia. Our goal is to drive the innovation ecosystem in Russia, and we united more than 1,000 technology startups in 5 clusters. So I'm running the information technology cluster. And here at the booth of Skolkovo, you can see actually 11 best technology startups which we brought here to Asia to meet partners and potential customers.
Hi, I'm Min, and I'm running Hubrom. Hubrom is the dedicated early stage program of Deutsche Telekom. Deutsche Telekom is one of the major European carriers running operations in 15 different countries. Hubrom, the program addressing early stage companies, is offering accelerator, incubator, early stage investment programs, and covering Western Europe as well as Eastern Europe, and we're serving that part of the world by running operations in Berlin and also in Poland. In addition to that, we've got programs running in Israel.
Great, thanks a lot. As a first question to kick off our discussion, I'd like to ask the panelists, how do you think about Europe? Because on one hand, it's a bunch of countries. On the other hand, much of it is part of the European Union. So is it really one market? Is it fragmented set of markets? How do you think about that?
Well, let me start. I think it's a great question to start with. From my point of view, actually, we're talking about a bunch of different countries rather than a single big economy. What I mean by this is that you have to distinguish between countries with, say, large economies, like for example, Germany, UK, France, Italy, and countries which are quite different. Take Eastern Europe, for example. Yeah. So there are different clusters within Germany, but even within one cluster, business attitude, the way of how to make business, is pretty different. So if you just compare, say, UK and Germany, UK probably is more like US, so it's more US oriented, whereas Germany, for example, would be more traditional. And I think the same would apply to France. So having said that, it sounds very complicated. To some extent it is, but still there's a great chance in it, because if you know what target customers you're addressing, you might very specifically pick the country where there's fair chance that customer will like your product.
Yeah, actually, first of all, I fairly agree with what was said. It's all, different countries, and what is more important, that culturally they are very different, and coming to the European markets, or to let's say Eastern European markets, you must understand that actually the expectations from the customers are absolutely different, and the way how the customers are consuming your products is different. And the other thing is that I see in mature European markets, there are a lot of, let's say, legacy hardware and software speaking about information technology. So, and in, let's say, new markets or emerging markets like Russia or Kazakhstan, you can more easily bring new ways of doing business or new technologies because there is nothing to change. That's why I think there is a good opportunity for Asian companies to come to the emerging markets, not only to the mature markets.
Yeah, like indeed, Europe is so different. Like same time, exactly. There's different culture, there is different language, and I think that the biggest barrier is the language. Like you can't just reach all Europe with one language, which is English. Like you have to start to think about where is your biggest number of clients and localize. Like we have localized our product into the 11 different languages, but it's still the same product. But still you can see how people are like using it differently. So you have to use different marketing. So you have to really understand that there are like, and in some areas like Eastern Europe or Balkans, there are like so many small countries, next to them. Like former Yugoslavia, there are like how many, 8 countries now or something, So former Soviet Union is like so many, and all of them is so small at the same time. So Europe is truly different, and you should really understand and look, where is our clients and what markets is actually even meaningful for us, Many times startups are looking, okay, I will do something in a home market. I'm from Estonia, we have just 1.3 million people, so there is no market. So that's why it's really need first to understand and look different markets before making any steps.
Well, I do agree that today Europe is more like a union of member states at a cohesive unit. But still, what I see and when I'm traveling and going to all the events in Europe, there is this tech community that is emerging and creating this cohesive Europe that we are all expecting for. The European Commission is doing a lot of things also to create bridges between their countries. They're looking for key players like accelerators, and we are exchanging startups and doing a lot of stuff to be able to build this unity. So if you're going to Europe and trying to reach markets, I think one of the key assets would be to find the good local partner, whether it would be in London, in Germany, in France, in Russia, but this local partner that is connected to all the other key players. So it would be your main asset if you want to penetrate the market.
Excellent, excellent. So the next question, we actually kind of started addressing it already, is obviously we have entrepreneurs from Southeast Asia in the room who are presumably contemplating expanding into Europe. So how would they make a decision on which markets to tackle first? And presumably the answer would depend whether this is a consumer versus a business-to-business startup. So how would you guide them? How would you advise for them to kind of think about that decision? What are the relevant factors? What are the markets to consider, and so on?
I think that the first is really like, what's the market size? There are like maybe 6, 7 cities in Europe which are like very good size, like London, Berlin, Amsterdam, Paris, Barcelona, Dublin, Moscow. These are the cities where are like already huge amount of startups. And next thing is exactly, come on, what's your product? And indeed, it's language barrier mostly in many countries. Like I don't believe that you can do business in Paris in English. So in Berlin you can already, which is great thing, So you should really like analyze the market and look other things, how easy you can do company, what is the local like labor market, how is the taxation and so on. And biggest trend was I have seen now that Berlin is really taking some ground. London has been obviously leading, there's no question. London has been the main interest point for the many startups just making office there, but it's so expensive now. We have to also look at the expenses. Like London is the same level as San Francisco or Singapore or New York. It's just a very expensive place to be. Can you get so many clients there? That's the question for you. So this is why there are like 7, 8 different things to analyze before making any steps. There is even one startup now, Teleport, which is making applications that you can just log in and put your data, and it's basically giving you in which city you should work, And you can look the similar thing in which city you should basically make a startup office.
Let me give 2 answers to your questions, and they're very different. The first of all is, I think it's a natural trade-off between the size of the economy of an individual state and the early adopter ability of that specific country. Yeah, that's back to the comment I made earlier. I mean, you have to know what target customers you're selling to. If, for example, you're into, say, music or so, it probably will be relatively hard to sell to Germany because it's so saturated, but Scandinavia is crazy about music, just for example. Yeah, but Scandinavia is small. Yeah, so to set that into relation, I mean, all 28 nations, EU nations, they have the same GDP as US, more or less, depending on exchange rate and so on and so forth. But as we said before, it's highly complex to address all of those countries at the same time. So you need to filter out which are the relevant countries. If you take the top 4 out of the 28 countries, which is Germany, UK, France, and Italy, they make up the same GDP as compared to China, for example. So still, it's pretty large, actually. Yeah. So you have the possibility to address big markets, but at the end of the day, you need to consider, is that the right place to start with? Because you need to have the early adopters who love your product, and at the same time, that's the second answer, you need to have a local partner. That would be my strong advice. Because of that inherent complexity, it's extremely helpful to have a partner who has the same interest as you, introducing innovative products and thereby strengthening their own market position. And depending on where you find that partner, that should influence your decision where to go as well.
I would, being a startup, I would think probably not so kind of classic way, because classic way you think, well, here is my biggest market, here are my customers, and I want to address the biggest ones with my product. But actually, being a startup, you don't have enough resources to do all of that, and probably you will die working with a big customer or entering the big market because the competition is so high. That's why I would think about the market where you can enter the easiest way, the most cheapest way, where you can hire actually less expensive people, or you have strong partner with whom you can share your expenses, because and definitely where you have a quite big addressable market. So that's why I would think what is the easiest way. Just to give you the feeling, one of our startups just opened an office in Malaga in Spain. And actually I asked him why not in Germany or in France, so in some obvious big markets. Because he said, first of all, Malaga gives me a lot of support in terms of my cost. And second, I can hire less expensive people to address Latin America and at the same time address Europe. So this is absolutely kind of mind-blowing decision for me. So I can think about this way.
I cannot disagree with that. Okay. Of course, as a startups, you're going to look for the cost of living, taxes, regulations. But I mean, for me, the first thing that you need to look at is the market. Where are your clients, customers? Where are your users? And like we're receiving a lot of startups through our exchange program that are coming to France because they are in the fashion industry or the food or sharing economy that is quite strong. Sometimes we go to London for the fintech industry, to Berlin for the music or the hardware. So I guess you need to be where your customer is, because this is where you will see the competition. This is where you will be the closest from the investors. So I would rather advise the startups here that wants to penetrate Europe to go, you find plan B, you find cheap ways, you are all entrepreneurs, so you know how to deal with that, but go where your market is.
But sometimes your clients are not startups, so in this sense there are cities which are not discovered by startups, and you can exactly be different, you can find your angle to the in. So this is why actually I agree with him, you have to be creative, you have to look differently, because you are competing, and exactly the problem in London and Berlin, there's so many like crowd and so on, if you find your own angle, you can do something. This is why actually I agree with you.
Excellent. Yeah, and by the way, you should feel free to catch the panel after the panel and ask them maybe some specific advice about which market to start in. So the next question I wanted to ask is, now that we know which countries we're going to go to, what are the main challenges that an early stage technology company from Asia, maybe even more specifically Southeast Asia, can expect to face in the first year of its functioning? And how would you anticipate and how would you deal with these challenges?
I think that finding teammates and great partner is the biggest challenge. How you can really, like if you are moving abroad and co-founder is deciding, okay, I will go to that city. Usually, how to find the great people for your team, how to find the great partners, because Asian culture and Europe culture is so different. So I would say that the team is usually like the most important thing. So hiring and finding even possibilities and building your network is like the biggest challenge. Is you can always like hire lawyers, whatever, how to make company, but exactly building the team and finding this great first clients. This is for me.
And how would you deal with that?
I don't know. There's no like black and white answer. It's just usually before you will move in, you should really like basically how in last 16 months I have been in 22 countries, so I have been traveling quite much. And the case is I'm always like I would move into the country in the moment when we have already some kind of presence. Like if you have anybody who can refer and so on. So you should really look your network, just work hard. Somebody knows somebody, and that's the way it is. If you have somebody already which you know, or you have some clients which are loving you, this will make things so much better, because people will trust if somebody from the network says, yes, this is a great product, yes, they are cool guys, and so on. So you should basically, if you're starting a company and you know that you have potentially clients in Europe or whatever market, you should immediately start to think about how we can get at least first of them, And then if you are moving to the next stage and you're opening office, so you have so much easier. So, and you never most likely will not just fly one day out of blue to this country. You will before it visit it just a few weeks and understand what's going on. And like if we moved to the Silicon Valley, we really visited it like a few times before we moved in, because but sometimes the things look so differently from the web than you actually arrive into the place.
I think you should differentiate between consumer businesses and B2B businesses. When it comes to B2B, it's still relatively international. So if you are able to work with a local partner, it's a great start, I think. Then you can talk to your partner of how to sell the product and develop a plan, target customers, and so on and so forth. So that's relatively easy. If you're into consumer space, I would completely agree that it's core to build up a local team that understands the local market. When it comes to the question, okay, how to find and how to build that team, one way might be to go through one of the existing accelerator programs, because what Europe has seen is a tremendous uptake in this kind of infrastructure over the last couple of years, actually. I recently saw figures for covering Europe, and according to that report, the accelerator programs that are existing in Europe, basically they had more than 1,000 participants in 2014. So 1,000 companies went through those programs. And it's part of that program, to build teams and then to work on an idea. And some of those programs also offer the possibility to bring in seasoned entrepreneurs who already have a product and simply want to work on a spin-off or what have you. So that might be one way of how to finding people you might want to work with.
Excellent. So let's talk about culture. I mean, obviously, there are major cultural differences between Asia and Europe, and even within Europe. There are very, very significant cultural differences between different countries. How do you think culture impacts early stage startups, and what are the things that you need to keep in mind as you address different cultural challenges as you roll out?
So actually, I think that there are good news as well, not only bad news about cultural differences, because also there are a lot of in common. So let's take, for example, Russia and B2B segment. Actually, I disagree that you don't need a local team when you are in B2B business. Actually, in the next day, after your first cold calls, you will need someone to go to the customer and talk to him. And what is good for, let's say, Asian companies, for example, in Russia and Eastern Europe, the way of selling in B2B segment is absolutely the same. So actually it's Asian way. So you build the relationship, you meet the people, you start, some kind of friendship, and then actually you start your sales, not before. And that's why I think it's quite good and understandable for Asian company. So I think this is very important to understand. And coming to the previous question about how to actually open a new business in a new country, I would start with studying the opportunities which country offers. Because if you take Singapore, for example, yesterday we just made with ACE, with Spring, with all these kind of agencies in Singapore who are ready to help, for example, Russian startup or any kind of startup to open the business in Singapore. Actually, it exists in every country. It exists in Russia, and I represent this kind of organization, Skolko. It exists in Spain, in France, in UK, everywhere. There are some government organizations or non-profit organizations who are ready to help, to find partners, to find team members. So I would start with this, with studying this landscape.
Yeah, I think that moving to the new market or going to the Europe is most likely not the early stage. It's just, I don't know, middle stage or whatever. So what we have done, we have in Estonian office 15 different nationalities. So we have been starting actually hiring like French people, Portuguese, Spanish and so on into our office. So in one moment when we are ready to open an office, and actually we can even send out exactly Spanish guy who has been working for us already 2 years in our Tallinn office, so they can find easily like the way in. And indeed, I think that learning languages is always super great thing, especially in Europe. You just can't live only, you can try to learn only English. And these cultural differences, I think that in Russia we should drink vodka, So to be friends. I'm not sure, I don't know about hints in French. And actually, there are many things which are wrong. Like if you're reading like the French people are lazy or whatever, this is super like wrong. We recently analyzed all the data and find out that yes, French people are taking more time for their lunch, but after that they are so much more effective, by the way. So all of the things what you're finding on internet, this is crap many times. But you just really should find people who are real guys from these markets, and you just take them into the team before you move into that specific market.
I mean, their cultural differences, it's a fascinating subject. And I think when you're reaching a new market, you need also to see, regarding your culture, on a scale where you will position yourself in terms of organization, as an example. There is a really interesting book that I will advise you. It's been written by a professor from INSEAD that is called Culture Map, and it's exactly that. It's comparing the local culture with yours and see where are the strength, weakness, and how to deal with those culture. And by the way, if you succeed in managing those differences within 1, 2, or 3 countries in Europe, then you're much stronger going to bigger markets like US or China or India, because if your investors see that you've been able to deal with the regulation, all the different things, because this is one of the weaknesses in Europe, is that in terms of policy, there are a lot of differences. So if you have at least 3 countries, then going to US investors, you have a big advantage comparing to US-based startups.
Excellent.
Just a little side comment on your question regarding cultural differences. Berlin really is one place that is truly international, that has become truly international. It's one of the probably few spots in Europe where it doesn't make any difference from where you are actually. So business language is English, so that's convenient for most people. And people are from so many different places. They all come to Berlin, so that's really relatively easy to at least hire a team, and then to start from there.
Excellent. So this is a very proactive panel. You sometimes answer questions I haven't even asked. But one question I wanted to spend a little bit more time on. what are the resources? I mean, a few of them you already mentioned, some of the government programs, accelerators, and so on. But what are the other resources that are available to Southeast Asian businessmen, startup entrepreneurs who are starting out in Europe?
I don't know for all the countries, but as for France, as an example, it's also governmental help, but it's a grant. It's called French Tech Ticket. So any startup can apply, and they will get a grant from 25K, I think, to cover the cost of living and to move to Paris. And it also will give you a space to work, which will be with the accelerators from the partnership. And of course, then you get all the connection with the ecosystem, with customers, startups, investors. It's called French Tech Ticket. So it's an example for France, but I guess in the other countries you get those kind of grants, mostly public.
Yeah, like I think that every government is understanding now in the Europe that startups are a really big wave. So I have seen more and more governments giving grants, even for the foreign companies to move into that country. And also, that is actually one thing which I would use. Like in every country you can find co-working spaces, and there are like quite similar people who are working, and you can just go and ask them. And all these events are also very good just to enter.
So actually, we mentioned all these government programs, tax exemptions, grants, and I think you can find it in every country. I think what is important for the startup is to have first sales, first contracts as soon as possible. And for example, I see in many countries, like in Russia, for example, in Skolkovo, we build these direct relationships with the biggest local corporations, and we actually helping the startups who are under our umbrella to drive the sales. And I think that this might be a very good value when you come to the new country to find someone who can help you to earn money, to get first contracts as soon as possible.
What hasn't been mentioned yet is the fact that amazes me all the time, which is that so many corporations, it seems to me European corporations, have built dedicated interfaces to the startup community because they're all reaching out in their individual sector to have access to the most appealing, to the most innovative products and services in their particular space. And I think that's one resource that should be mentioned as well. Yeah, so if you're into B2B, if you want to sell to a corporation, you should have a look whether they have a dedicated startup program.
Excellent, thank you. So we have a couple more minutes left. We spoke about countries, but maybe we sort of make it a little bit even more specific. So I will ask each panelist to maybe name 1 or 2 cities in Europe that the entrepreneurs in the room should consider as a place to locate their European headquarters or their European presence. So briefly name a city and explain the main arguments why. So just maybe 2 or 3 sentences.
Okay, so my clear recommendation would be to go to Berlin. It's not because that's where I'm from, but it's because I think it's a space that is extremely dynamic, which is truly international, as said before, which has a already large and still strongly growing startup ecosystem where nearly all the components are in place.
Actually, it's obvious. I would think about Moscow, about Russia and CIS, because first of all, this is 200 million people market. And I feel myself, it is underpenetrated by IT companies, because most of the companies think, oh, Russia is so difficult, it's so cold, and that's why I think that first companies who would come from Asian side to the Russian market actually would have a lot of success.
Yeah, I wanted to say Berlin, but now I will change it a bit. I would suggest Amsterdam, the capital of Netherlands. And the reason is that actually it's very thriving startup market, sir. It's not so popular as London or Berlin or Moscow, but you can reach many countries from Amsterdam. It's very great transportation hub. So it's really multicultural country already, and you have actually great market, and you can reach all the close by markets from Amsterdam. So I will go for Amsterdam. And that is actually, you can legally buy weed.
Okay, to be truly honest, I would love to say that, like, if you're looking for funds, I would love to say come to Paris, but the reality is that London has definitely the strongest VC and business angels community, so this is where you should go if you're first looking for investment. Then, for the rest, come to France. Like to be like in Paris, where so we are seeing hundred startups growing each year, and the sectors are very, very diverse. From the music industry to the food to the sharing economy, we have a lot of great startups like BlaBlaCar that has raised more than 100 million and opened in 14 different European countries. And those kind of factors are important because they're giving back to the ecosystem, investing as smart angels to the startups and helping to grow internationally. So this is the thing that you should be looking at if you are in this kind of sectors. Look what are the successful startups where they are based, and because those are the startups that might be your next investors and help you to scale.
Great. Well, this is all the time we have for today. Let's give a round of applause to the panel for their excellent advice. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, panel. So we'll go to our last panel for today.